Excellent. And I'll ask also just our team to keep an eye out on the attendees, just to see if there's anybody else, especially board member Laurel Firestone when she comes in, please. Let's go ahead and get started. It is Thursday, February 12th, and we are kicking off our Safer Advisory Group onboarding meeting. This meeting is happening via Zoom, but we do have a space in the Cali, PA building for anybody in the public that would like to come and join and also make any public comments. We're going to go to the next slide. So real quick, just in terms of ways to participate, also for folks who are joining as attendees, if you would like to provide public comment, you can always email safer@waterboards.ca.gov, or you can also wait for the public comment section, and we will allow you to come in and state your public comment verbally. For that, we'll ask you to register, and there's a bit.ly link where you can see. For any technical questions, also please email our Safer email. Something to note is today's onboarding meeting is now being webcasted. All of our quarterly advisory group meetings are webcasted except today's. And we'll go to the next slide. Great. So all of our quarterly advisory group meetings are offered in English with Spanish interpretation. Today's meeting will only be in English, and I will be supporting with Spanish interpretation when needed. We want to make sure we follow the same guidelines as if we had Spanish interpretation. So I'll ask everyone to please speak slowly so everyone's able to capture your comments and or recommendations. One thing that I do want to highlight on this particular slide that we all will have to do is when our interpretation icon is activated, which will happen for today's meeting, but also all of our future quarterly meetings, everyone has to go down and find the globe icon, click, and everyone must select a language, English or Spanish. For this meeting, it'll be in English, but when we do have Spanish interpretation, Spanish speakers will select Spanish and mute original audio. So for today's meeting, I'll ask everyone to go ahead and go find the globe icon, click, and select English as your language. Let me know if anybody has any trouble finding it or any questions on this aspect. Okay, and so we'll go to the next slide. So the other thing to note is in terms of viewing options, you're going to see at the top of your Zoom platform 3 tabs. So you're going to see webinar, Spanish PowerPoint, and English PowerPoint. And you can select the presentation in which you want to view the PowerPoint. Y Rosa, para ti, déjame ver si puedes ver arriba de la pantalla, son como 3 pestañas. Y dice webinar, está el de inglés y el español. Si prefieres ver las diapositivas en español, tienes esa opción. Si tienes alguna pregunta, me dejas saber. And if anyone has any questions at any point, please feel free to let us know. One of the ways you can let us know if you have a question is we do have some Zoom interactions. So there's the chat box where staff can also send some notes or messages to the advisory group members and vice versa. So if you do have a question, we'll ask you to click raise hand, and we'll make note also in the order in which folks are raising their hand. Once you're done, we can also click raise hand again, and it'll come down. And we'll go to the next slide. Excellent. Okay, so we'll go ahead and kick this meeting off with introductions. We'll always say it's so important for us to know who's in the room. And so I'll go ahead and kick us off, and then I'll ask our State Water Board staff to introduce themselves. My name is Alma Lopez. I'm with the Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs. I'm an engagement coordinator, and I will be facilitating today's meeting. I'll go ahead and send it over to Amelia to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Alma. My name's Amelia Nishimura. I am the manager of the Safer Communications and Language Access Program, also in the Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs. And I will go ahead and pass it over to Lacey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lacey Carlson, and I work with Amelia and Alma in the Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs. And I will pass it over to Mandy.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mandy, and I'm also with um, the Office of OPIRA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. And I'll send it over to our folks in the Division of Drinking Water. If you can introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Dan Wang. I am with Division of Drinking Water Needs Analysis Unit. I'm the supervisor for needs analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And I think that's everyone for the Division of Drinking Water. We'll send it over to the Division of Financial Assistance.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeff Wetzel with the Division of Financial Assistance. I'm a supervisor over the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Unit. And let me see if there's any coworkers I'm going to pass it to. I think that's it.
Thank you, Jeff. I was also keeping an eye. I think it's just you for the Division of Financial Assistance. Thank you. And we'll send it over to OCC, the Office of Chief Counsel.
Hi, everyone. Lauren Marshall with the Office of Chief Counsel. I advise both OPITA, Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs, and DFA, Division of Financial Assistance.
Thank you, Lauren. And I also see Board Member Laura Firestone. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, Laurel Firestone. I'm one of the State Water Board members. And I'm happy to say more, but do you want me to wait till after intros are done?
Go ahead. I think I know I was waiting to see when you would come in to do like a few welcoming remarks. So I think this is perfect timing, and then we can go ahead and continue with our introductions with our advisory group members. So please go ahead, take the floor.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome all of you that are new to the advisory group. I know a number of you, and it's great to see your faces. And I'm really grateful, and on behalf of the board as a whole, just really grateful for your willingness to serve and share your expertise and perspective to help us make the SAFER program successful. And you know, we have lofty goals that are really critical for the state to be able to ensure that all Californians have access to safe, clean, affordable, reliable drinking water. And it doesn't happen easily. We're doing innovative things in terms of trying to proactively identify where assistance is needed the most, and really target all the different types of assistance that we have and all of our resources, both on the carrot and stick side, I would say, to move our state to a place where no matter where you live, you can rely on good water coming out of your tap. This is a program that's been, it's about going in, it's in its sixth year, and we've seen a lot of success, but it's also at a great inflection point to be thinking about how it can continue to evolve and improve and what we've learned. And really critical to this program is having the diverse perspectives that are here, from whether you're, you know, a consumer and somebody that's served by a water system, or a board member of a local water system, you know, one of the various entities that support getting solutions in place, local government. We have a lot of great expertise and diverse perspectives that are really critical for helping us figure out, and you'll hear, you know, I know today more about both how we assess the need and then target our resources in particular. And so just wanted to welcome you all and express thanks. It's definitely time. And we really appreciate that. We know that's not easy. All of you are super busy. Please don't hesitate to speak up. That's why we want you here, is to share your ideas and share your thoughts. And just thanks for your service. And I just really look forward to hearing from you all on this and working with you all and helping to make this successful. And it's great to see a lot of you that I know.
Thank you so much, Board Member Laura Farnston, for making the time and sharing those welcoming remarks. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So at this point, we'll ask the Safer Advisory Group to introduce themselves. And we'll have a few guidelines here to share your name, the community you represent, or organization that you represent. Let us know if you're a newly appointed or a continuing advisory group member. We do have a few folks that are joining that are continuing advisory group members. And also, if you can briefly share, why did you join the advisory group and what do you hope to contribute? And I'm going to share this briefly also in Spanish. Para esta parte, vamos a pedirles a los miembros del grupo asesor que se presenten con su nombre, la comunidad que representan o organización, que nos dejen saber si son miembros que continúan o si recientemente han sido nombrados y que nos dejen también saber brevemente por qué decidieron solicitar al grupo asesor y qué es lo que esperan contribuir. Rosa, si lo quieres decir en español o en inglés cuando te toque, como gustes. Does anyone want to kick us off?
Yeah, Alma, this is Bruce. I will do that.
Go ahead, Bruce, and then we can popcorn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bruce Hadelschelt. I'm the Director of Water Quality for Northern California Water Association. Northern California Water Association represents, the communities, the growers, the landowners in the northern part of the Central Valley. We're responsible, all of us, for providing safe drinking water for 3 million people. We've got 2 million acres of farmland, 7 national wildlife refuges, 50 state wildlife refuges, and 4 runs of salmon. I've been involved along with a number of folks in basin plan amendments. I oversee the irrigated lands regulatory program for the Sacramento Valley. That's everything other than the rice. I'm a newly appointed advisory group member. I'm really pleased to be here. Like Board Member Firestone, a lot of familiar faces. We at Northern California Water Association, on at least a quarterly basis, or try to do it on a quarterly basis, do something called the North State Drinking Water Solutions Network, where we've had Jeff there. We've had a number of people that are on the call come and make a presentation on safer, and with our goal of connecting folks throughout the Sacramento Valley to the resources that are available to ensure that their failing or at-risk systems are making progress toward funding and implementation and getting off of the list. So that, because of my involvement over the past couple of years in that and attending safer meetings, I wanted to get more involved and help, have this expression, which I'll try not to use too often, but much of this is overnight success, a quarter century in the making. So, being 6 years into a project that is ambitious, complex, you're just at the toddler stage. So happy to join and participate.
Thank you, Bruce. Would you like to popcorn to someone else?
Sure. Maureen, tell us about your role here.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, I love your workshops that you do. I think they're excellent. I've learned a lot. So thank you for that. And hi, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here. I'm thrilled to be part of the advisory group this year. I am newly appointed, and I'm also a new executive director for an organization called the Valley Water Collaborative. And we implement the nitrate control program on behalf of permittees. Valley Water Collaborative manages 7 groundwater basins, so Yolo down to Madera. And so Perry Clausen, he was the former executive director, and I um, took the reins from him, and am thrilled to be here. So why did I join the advisory group, or what do I hope to contribute? I just think this is really important work. I think Safer program is an excellent, innovative program that is really providing a desperate need. It needs to happen, and so I'm really grateful that the Valley Water Collaborative has been part of receiving SAFER funding for the last few years. I'm excited to continue working with SAFER program in any way that we can, and also making sure that folks in the community have safe drinking water. My focus is, nitrate. That's the nitrate control program, but I think it's important that we, work together in all ways. So excited to be here. Thank you very much. And let's see here. I don't want to mention someone. Rosa.
Hi, thank you, Maureen. Hi, my name is Rosa Carrillo. I'm appointed to SAFER Advisory Group. I live and work for San Gerardo Cooperative in Salinas. San Gerardo, many of you knows the story of San Gerardo that has been a community impacted by nitrates and their wells. And it's the reason why I'm involved in this movement. I didn't know anything about the water contamination since I started working for San Gerardo back in 22. But at the time, I was just like little bit involved. But last year, when I was appointed as a general manager, is when I get like dip into the deep waters and knowing trying to get more information so I can be a help to bring communities together. And is the reason why I decided to apply to be in this group to bring the communities together so everyone can learn from different perspectives, and especially people can understand the struggles, the people that is living every day and with the fear that their family member is gonna be ill because of the contamination in their water. And a lot of people, they don't understand, and they just think that we are overreacting of this water issue, but it's not. So this is the reason why I'm here, so everyone can understand more our communities and the fear that everyone is facing day by day. And thank you. I'm really honored to be part of this group and to learn from every one of you. And thank you, Laurel, for being here. And I know that you are trying to help to mitigate this issue or the contamination of the water. I really appreciate every one of you, and I'm here to help and to any way that I can do. Thank you. And I don't know who else to pass. I don't know the names. I don't see anyone here. Let me see. Oh, Angela.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Angela Reese Alvarez, and I'm newly appointed. I represent Orosi Public Utility District. This is my first year. I completed 1 year as being a board member, and what a roller coaster of a year. But it's been a year of learning, and I come to I'm new to water, so I've tried to learn everything I can about water. I attended classes, I attended seminars, I attended anything you could think about so I could learn about water. And so I'm here because it gives me an opportunity to learn more about water, but also to have the voices of my community, which is Cutler, Orosi, East Orosi, and surrounding communities heard. We are an unincorporated area. We don't have a city, so we're it. We're the only public entity there other than the Memorial Hall. So it's very important that we're able to have our voice heard, and I'm hoping that I could be that person. Thank you, and I'll pass it over to, did Norma already go?
Not yet. Norma? And we can come back to you. Oh, there we go. You got it.
Sorry, I was trying to find my mute. Yes, my screen was a little covered. So hi, my name is Norma Mesqua. I represent a small mobile home community in the rural area of Thurman, California. So on the other side of most of you. And this is my second year on the advisory group. And I joined so that I can learn how to help my community. We are on the small mobile home family is about 100 families on a water well. It's a small water well. So the drinking water is not as obviously not good. We have arsenic levels that are pretty high. So we have them on portable waters right now. So I'm like Angela, trying to learn everything, going to all the Zooms and online classes and going to seminars and everything possible to learn more about how to help my community. If I need to rehabilitate the community in some way, that's why I'm here. So I'm here to learn and be as helpful as I possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma.
I
Do you want to send it to someone else?
Yes, let me see. Let's see. Ooh, my screen is Christopher.
Hello, my name is Christopher Marquis. I am a environmental scientist specialist in OPEDA, the Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs. I'm relatively new to my role, but here just to kind of get onboarded and see what's going on. If you guys have any environmental justice questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Oh, and I guess pass it off to someone else, correct? That's the next component.
To another advisory group member. So we still have Jim Sullivan, Adam Rausch, Timoteo.
I'll go with Mr. Sullivan. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Sullivan, and I live in the town of Mendocino in Mendocino County, and I represent folks that are on private wells. I'm a continuing advisory group member, and I have experience in state government back in the state of Indiana, where I was in the drinking water program and worked in groundwater, basically. And so what I hope to contribute is some of the knowledge that I've gained through working as that role, and then through working with this advisory group, a very innovative group. It's fantastic, and also bringing the awareness of private well owners that may or may not know, the quality of their water, and bring awareness to those folks. Okay, and then let's see who to pass to next. Adam Rausch.
Thanks, Jim. My name is Adam Rausch. I'm a professional civil engineer, and I'm representing GHD, a company that serves as one of the technical assistance providers under the SAFER program. So trying to implement infrastructure improvements for these disadvantaged communities throughout the state. Really looking to improve that process along with the state staff, work with them to try and streamline and get these programs working faster. I bring a technical perspective, the assistance provider perspective, but I'm also really hoping to learn from those with perspectives I don't normally get to encounter. I'm still in my first term as an advisory group member, but I have completed the first year. So I think I answered those all out of order, but hopefully I covered all the bases. And I'll pass it to Timoteo Prado.
Hi, everybody. My name is Timoteo Prado. I'm newly appointed to the advisory group. I actually come from Lamont, California, which is, if nobody knows where it is, it's actually the fictional town that was used to write Grace the Raft. So the actual town in Grace the Raft is my town. I've served as currently been serving as director and president of the board of directors for the Lamont Public Utilities Board for the past 6 years. I'm actually one of the communities that SAFER actually gave money to build 4 brand new wells in consolidation with El Adobe. One of the things that made me want to join this board is I have this constant pet peeve with consolidation projects that they take too long to achieve. And that's kind of like my thing that residents always come and complain to me is like, oh, well, you guys promised us clean water is in 2014. It's 2026. Where's my clean water? So I'm very knowledgeable on the kind of local government issues of water. Since I'm from Lamont and that's in Kern County, I'm also very aware of the need within my county regarding water issues. Currently, I'm working as a resident, just advising ATOs and certain members because Kern County, in part, when they passed their current oil gas ordinance, they put consolidation money aside to assist with consolidation projects. So now here's the question of how do we get local governments to give up money that they put aside for these projects too?
Thank you, Timoteo. And I know we still have Wajiha in the advisory group. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Wajiha Noor. I'm from Riverside, California. I'm a newly appointed advisory group member. The reason I've joined because I work at Eastern Municipal Water District. We are a water, wastewater, recycled water provider. In fact, we are the 6th largest retail water agency in California. We serve nearly 1 million people in Western Riverside County and Northern San Diego County. We actually serve a very diverse population. Roughly 1/3 of our population is disadvantaged, and we also serve 2 tribes in our district. At the district, I work as a governmental affair analyst. I closely work on state legislation and policy with a focus on affordability. I also am one of the advisory group member on the wastewater needs assessment, which, if you're not familiar, is the first of its kind statewide effort to look at human rights to sanitation. So it's kind of similar to SAFER, but on the wastewater side. And the reason I wanted to join was because of my contributions there and wanted to learn more about the SAFER and a big believer of human rights to both water and sanitation. And I wanted to share my perspective from the utility side. Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Wajiha, and thank you to all the advisory group members for making the time of joining us today on the onboarding, but also the importance of getting to know each other and the wealth of knowledge and resources that each and one of you brings. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So just a real quick overview for today's agenda. Really, the intention of the onboarding is to give you all a framework of the Safer Advisory Group in relationship to the Safer Advisory Group, Safer Drinking Water Program. So we're going to kick us off with a water boards overview to have an understanding also of the history, but also the structure of the water boards. We're going to then talk about the drinking water program, and then your role as a advisory group member. If time allows, and I think we will, we'll do a brief collaboration session and we'll wrap up with public comments. We always want to make sure we have a public comment section for members of the public community to share any thoughts, questions on the agenda. And we'll go to the next slide. So just real quick also for meeting guidelines, we'll ask you to mute yourself if you're not speaking. If you can join by video, be sure to take care of yourself, take breaks as needed. I know folks having long meetings today, so thank you again for joining. We'll ask you to speak slowly. Again, we don't have simultaneous interpretation happening today. However, we want to be sure that staff is able to capture your thoughts, comments, and recommendations. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and we'll ask you to keep your comments concise for sake of time and to allow everyone else to share also their thoughts. Any questions or technical support, please also email or use our Safer email. And we'll go to the next slide. And at this point, I'll yield the floor to Amelia Nishimura to give us a brief overview of the water boards.
Thank you, Alma. Hi, everyone. So again, my name's Amelia Nishimura, and I work in the Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs, specifically in our Safer Communications and Language Access program. So we can go ahead and move over to the next slide. Okay, so the mission of the water boards is to preserve, enhance, and restore California's water resources for the benefit of present and future generations. So what we want to start this meeting on is by acknowledging the groups who have experienced economic, environmental, and social disadvantages as a result of historical marginalization, racism, and injustice. The Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience Drinking Water Program, also known as the SAFER program, was created to bring environmental justice to California. So as a reminder, our work today should strengthen the empowerment of Indigenous and community voices as we work together to provide safe and affordable water to all Californians. Next slide. Before we start these videos, I just want to check in with you, Alma. Does it look like we're looking good on time? Would you like me to pick one of these videos to show, or do you think we'll be okay moving forward?
I think one of the videos would be best. We'll be sure to also send the links to the Safer Advisory Group members, but I think one of the videos would be best.
Okay, I'm thinking let's move to the next slide and we can show the structure of the water boards. So I'll go ahead and let you play that.
One second. Just checking to see if you're able to listen or hear it. Let's see. Let me try this one.
We might be able to hear a little bit of it, but we're not seeing it play on the screen.
I see.
And if we are having some technical difficulties, we can definitely skip over these and make sure that we are sending these to advisory group members, if that's easier.
Let me try one last thing, see if this is possible. You can hear the audio, but not the video play, right?
Yeah, we can vaguely hear the audio, but no video.
Okay. Technical difficulties. We'll go ahead and then we'll pause on the videos. We can go ahead and share the links to the water board structure and the history for everyone to see it also in their own time. Is that okay?
That works.
Thank you, Amelia.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we can go ahead and move over to the next slide. Okay, so what is SAFER? SAFER stands for the Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience Drinking Water Program. It is a collection of tools, funding sources, and regulatory authorities working to help struggling water systems to sustainably provide safe and affordable drinking water to their customers. The Safer Drinking Water Program was established in 2019 and is an extension of a long history of California bills that are related to drinking water. Most recently, AB 685 was adopted in 2012, and it established the human right to water as a state law, making California the first state in the nation to legislatively recognize the human right to water. The SAFER program is committed to ensuring access to safe and affordable drinking water for all Californians. SAFER is driven by collective responsibility, water systems, nonprofit organizations, governments, community advisory board, technical assistance providers, community leaders, and other stakeholders work together to develop and implement solutions for safe and affordable drinking water. SAFER prioritizes collaborative voluntary solutions and relies on regulatory solutions only when necessary. Regulatory authorities can include joining or consolidating nearby water systems, or appointing a skilled water professional to manage these aspects of a failing water system until it becomes sustainable. We can go ahead and move over to the next slide. So let's discuss why SAFER is necessary. The map on the right is a screenshot of the Drinking Water Needs Assessment dashboard. The orange and red dots represent community water systems with drinking water violations. So of the about 3,000 community water systems in California, there's about 400 that did not consistently meet safe drinking water standards. And one thing to note is that this map does not show approximately the 300,000 domestic wells and 1,200 state small water systems, nor does it show tribal water systems, which are regulated by the federal government. So SAFER is helping these struggling systems to implement solutions that will allow them to sustainably provide safe and affordable drinking water. So how did we get here? As California's water infrastructure was being developed, waves of migrants were settling in various farm worker and dairy labor camps. Many of these camps later grew into small communities, and eventually several became cities. However, historically, decision makers used race to establish structures and systems, including land use practices. Because of this, oftentimes cities would grow around these small migrant communities, creating fringe communities located outside of incorporated areas and municipal services. Without access to municipal services, many communities formed special districts. Others sought water through mutual water companies, small cities, domestic wells, and state small systems. These historic land use structures continue to deliver desperate outcomes, including wealth, health, educational, and environmental inequities. Many of the communities that have experienced historic land use structures are also the communities that don't have safe drinking water. So the Water Boards is committed to racial equity and environmental justice, and we hope that through the SAFER program, we can achieve the human right to water for all Californians. We can move over to next slide. So fast forward to today, we now have these small disadvantaged communities that are facing complex challenges to deliver safe and affordable drinking water. Often they do not have the technical capacity to run sophisticated treatment systems, the governance or managerial capacity to operate their water systems effectively, or the financial capacity to support growing operation and maintenance costs. So every year through our annual needs assessment, we review these indicators for every public water system to see if they are at risk of not being able to provide safe drinking water. Next slide. The program uses data collection and analysis, regulatory authorities, technical assistance, funding sources, outreach and engagement, multi-agency coordination, and recommendations from the SAFER Advisory Group to advance the principle of the human right to water and alleviate the disproportionate environmental burdens experienced by some communities. SAFER supports permanent and sustainable drinking water solutions to ensure all Californians have and will continue to have safe access to affordable and reliable drinking water. Short-term solutions include things like temporarily connecting a community to a safe water source or providing bottled water. Long-term solutions lead to self-sufficient drinking water systems and include things like system upgrades, consolidation, and staff training and development. We also ensure equitable engagement and participation in all that we do. To do this, we are continuously evaluating ways to support community capacity building and involvement in SAFER. This includes making all SAFER materials available in English and Spanish, offering interpretation services, and encouraging participation through thoughtful meeting design. Additionally, staff receive input from this advisory group, which advises the State Water Board on the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund expenditure plan and other related safer drinking water program policies. You'll be learning more about your specific roles and areas of input later in this presentation, but the fund expenditure plan is one of the areas where we really need and value your input, with members of this group representing a variety of stakeholders, including public water systems, technical assistance providers, local agencies, tribal water systems, non-governmental organizations, state small water systems, domestic wells, and those served by community water systems in disadvantaged communities. Next slide. Okay, so the SAFER program is not just a funding program, it's a structured, data-driven process that moves from identifying need to delivering sustainable solutions. So the SAFER program starts with the needs assessment, where we identify failing and at-risk water systems and quantify both immediate and long-term needs. This data informs the SAFER Advisory Group, which helps guide funding priorities for the State Water Board. Those priorities shape the SAFER Fund Expenditure Plan, ensuring investments are strategic and targeted to the communities with the greatest need. Beyond funding, staff and technical assistance providers actively engage with communities to implement solutions, whether that's interim relief or long-term infrastructure improvements. All of this work ultimately advances California's human right to water ensuring safe, clean, affordable, and accessible drinking water for every community. Next slide. Okay, so this is an opportunity if anybody had any questions to feel free to raise your hand, and I or a member of our staff at the water boards can help answer some questions.
Thank you, Amelia. And I'm looking to see if anybody raises their hand. And if not, you can also unmute yourself. And if we have no questions for now, go ahead, Lacey.
Yeah, I've just been noticing in the chat, we've got a couple folks having some audio issues. If anyone can't hear what has been happening when Amelia was talking, please make sure that you're on the English channel because Amelia's the one sharing the Spanish PowerPoint slides. Her audio can be a little bit tricky. So just click on the bottom 3 dots of your screen, look for interpretation, and then choose English. And that should solve audio problems for you.
Sorry
you,
about
Lacey.
that. Yeah, I didn't see that. Hopefully you all got some of that.
We did. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Maureen?
Yeah, I want to apologize ahead of time for I have a question, but I hope I word it correctly. Yeah, I took a picture of the previous slide. I thought it was great. So the Safer Advisory Group assesses the needs assessment and then helps the State Water Board with priorities for the which impact the fund expenditure plan. And is the fund expenditure plan, what's the, so the impact that the voices on the current advisory group, would that impact a fund expenditure plan for 2027 or 26? I guess what's the timeline there, and sort of maybe I'm looking for a little bit more, maybe more details. Maybe that's my question.
Good question, Maureen. And we will have a presentation specifically from Jeff Wetzel, also on the division from the Division of Financial Assistance on the FEP. So they will be giving us the framework of how the advisory group advises on the FEP and the timeline.
Okay.
So if it's okay, we can
Great.
park
No.
that question, and then we'll bring it back up when Jeff begins his presentation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good question. Thank you. If no further questions on this end, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. We're going to yield the floor to Dan Wang to present on the annual needs assessment. And again, this is also a framework for you all to see how we give input, but also how the needs assessment informs the FEP to be able to give those recommendations. Dan, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dan. I am the Needs Assessment Unit Supervisor for Division of Drinking Water, and today I will provide an overview of the needs assessment approach. Next slide, please. As mentioned by Amelia, we are focusing on identifying the filling list and at-risk water systems. The goal is to assess water systems that fail to meet the goals of human right to water. And we look into community water systems and non-community water systems that serve schools under this umbrella. And filling water systems are those water systems that are out of compliance or consistently fail to meet drinking water standards. I do want to point out 98% of California population actually do receive drinking water that meets standards. We're here to help the remaining 2%. Next slide, please. Here is the history of the filling criteria over time. And the first category is, if you look at what it means, is a health-based contaminant exceeds a regulatory standard, maximum contamination level, and the system has an open enforcement action ongoing to address that particular challenge. And that's been in the criteria since 2021. And the second category are taste, odor, color, or other secondary consideration that exceeds the regulatory level of maximum contaminant level, and there is an open enforcement actions to address that, then this water system is on the failing list, and it's also on the criteria since April 2021. The third category is bacterial logical E. coli violations, the detection of or failure to test for bacteria, and there is an open enforcement action associated with that violation, and this has been added to the criteria from April 2021 onward. The fourth category is treatment techniques violations. The system fails to follow required treatment requirements and has one violation and open enforcement action or 3 or more violations within 3 years. So basically, in this case, we allow an actual possibility of having violations but not having enforcement action associated with it yet to be on the fitness. And as you can see, originally it's partially implemented, then we expanded it, and now it's fully included since April 2024. A fifth category is monitoring and reporting violations. The system failed to report the data to us, which rendered our ability to check if they meet all those above standards, then they are also on the hook. In this case, because we're not sure if there is the actual question problems or they just fail to submit the data, so we give it a little bit more violation counts, needs to have 3 or more occurrence of missed or late testing reporting within last 3 years, and at least 1 occurrence where an enforcement action has been open for 15 months or longer. And that has been added to the criteria since April 2021. The last category we added recently is source capacity and water outage violations, basically looking at if there's sufficient water to sustain the system. If the system is unable to deliver water, has insufficient water pressure, or is missing a required source capacity planning study, and there's an open enforcement action, and that criteria has been added since April 2024. Next slide, please. Next, I will talk about risk assessment. So the failing criteria are identifying water systems that are currently consistently not meeting the standards. And the risk assessment looks at potentials and currently not meeting standards, basically more proactive about what might happen. And in this assessment, we look at 4 big categories. If you look at the left side, we look at the most important one, water qualities. We also look at water quantities, which is accessibility. In this case, not accessibility by the consumers, but water source availability for the water system to access. We also have TMF, which is the umbrella term for technical, managerial, financial capacity. The water system has to have all those capacities to run the water system sufficiently. And lastly, affordability. Under each category, there are multiple risk indicators, and thresholds were developed for each risk indicator, and eventually weights are assigned to each indicator to calculate the overall risk score. And all this went through public workshops to get feedback and recommendations. And basically, it's a consensus scoring system. Next slide, please. And here I list the current risk indicators we have. Under water quality category, we have increasing presence of water quality trends toward the regulatory threshold of maximum contaminant level, which means even if the water system has not gone above the threshold, but if we showed the trend to go upward, then we start to think this is going to be adding the risk score. Second one is percentage of source exceeding and threshold. That is straightforward. And past presence on the failing list is a risk indicator, constituents of emerging concern for those we don't have maximum contaminant level threshold, but they are potentially a future issue. History of E. coli presence, treatment technique violations. And under the second category of accessibility, we look at absence of interties, basically connection to other water systems where you could borrow or buy water from in the when needed. Number of sources. If a water system has a single source and that source is not very reliable, it's a big risk. And the third one is a overall indicator developed by Department of Water Resources. It's called Drought and Water Shortage Risk Assessment Results. We directly take their score and use it as one. Critically overdrafted groundwater basin. If this water system is taking water from critically overdrafted groundwater basin, that is a risk. If the system rely on bottled or hot water, that is also a risk. And on top of that, we have a series of source capacity violations that Division of Drinking Water staff will evaluate and issue when we see those problems. Next slide, please. Under affordability category, the indicators we have are household socioeconomic burden. That looks at actually in the served neighborhood, the poverty level, the housing burden, all of that together. We took that data from our environment screen. And then the second one is percent of medium household income that is used to pay for water. And the third one, extreme water bill, is basically if this water system's water bill is way higher than average for the entire California. The last category, the technical, managerial, financial capacity. The indicators we have currently, total net annual income, operating ratio, days cash on hand, which means the reserve the water system has, if there's suddenly no revenue, how many days can they sustain their operation? Monitoring and reporting violations, that shows if they are doing their job. So that's under managerial. Significant deficiencies, that's from the routine survey. Our field staff will go and check on the water systems and notify any significant deficiencies they observe. And the last one is operator certification violations. Basically, the operator that runs the water system needs to have relevant and sufficient certificate for the complexity of the water systems they're operating. Next slide, please. So what I showed earlier are the friendliness and at risk are for public water systems. We also has the collaborator with us to work on risk assessment for state small water systems and domestic wells. They are statutorily not under the regulation of water board. Some of them are regulated by counties. Yeah, that's where I'm going to put it because it's very complicated of who is responsible to regulate them. And in this group, we evaluate the water quality, water shortage, and socioeconomic burden in order to calculate or assess their risk. In this case, we don't always have monitoring data from them in our databases. So the assessment is look at where they draw the water from, and if there's any data from all the sources we know, all the data sources we know that show the water quality or water shortage or issue, then we would use those data as a proxy for what risk this particular state small or domestic well site will experience. And socioeconomical is the same thing as what we did from earlier on, is taken from Cal Enviro screen. Next slide, please. The last part I want to touch on is cost assessment. Senate Bill 200 directs the Water Board to estimate anticipated funding needs related to implementation of interim and/or emergency measure and long-term solutions for failing and at-risk systems. The last cost assessment we conducted are in the 2024 needs assessment and used to inform prioritization of existing safer funding. I want to emphasize the cost assessment is not intended to inform local decisions. It's primarily used to help prioritize where our funding can go, and it doesn't guarantee that all water systems on the failing list or at risk will get funding because the primary responsibility to sustain the operation of the water system lies on the water system. Next slide, please. And here I listed out the past 5 years of the needs assessment results. That's all we have for past 5 years. And if you would like to learn more about, the whole design of the needs assessment, I also included a URL here, which provide a lot of the background information that we are talking about here today as well. Next slide, please. That's what I have for today. Please let me know you have any questions.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to look to see if there's any questions on the annual needs assessment. And I see Wajiha. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for that great presentation. Just a quick question. So the needs assessment happen every year, but the criteria only change once in the middle?
No, the needs assessment, you mean the risk assessment, which has gone through several rounds of revision, but it's too complicated to show it on this presentation. So I listed the current list of criteria. For example, some of the data sources we had from the error rate during COVID, which basically check the revenue loss for the water system during COVID, those data sources are no longer available. So those risk indicators are removed. So there's an addition and removal, but every time we went through the public process to finalize it.
Yeah, that was going to be my second question. Is it like the input that you receive from the advisory group? And
Yes.
you mentioned that priority is set. So is it set in terms of like the failing system get more focus from funding compared to the at risk, or maybe that's something that you're going to discuss in the future, like
Yeah. The next part of the presentation by Jeff will touch on that, but the principle is to try to help the failing systems first.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jihan. Thank you, Dan. And I also see Adam Rausch.
Yeah, I will mention that I noticed it seemed the affordability criteria existed on the risk assessment, but does not seem like it can ever be a category or a cause for a failing classification. And
go ahead.
And I'm wondering, if I have seen cases where a water system has very high water bills for whatever reasons, a high percentage of household income, and they're not operating financially sustainably, and they maybe say, at this rate, it's 5 months until we're out of money, and then we're not going to be able to afford something, and something very bad is going to happen. So we can see it on the horizon. But until that bad thing happens, it's not going to be a failing system, and it's not going to be eligible for some of the interventions. I'm wondering if there's a pathway to like a failing equivalency based on affordability, or if we just lack the data to do that equitably, so we can't provide that as a criteria. What went into that system, I guess? Thanks.
So the failing criteria, as you can see, is based on if the water system meets all the drinking water regulatory standard. Right now, we don't have a regulatory standard on the affordability side. SB 1188 and the financial assurance start to ask us to develop technical, managerial, and financial capacity regulations, and that will be ongoing for a few years until we have a good proposal. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
That was a great question. And thank you, Dan, also for your presentation and answering. Any other questions on the annual needs assessment? If none or other questions come to you later, please, we can also reach out directly. Dan, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your presentation.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll take a quick 5-minute break to give you all just a quick stretching. If you need to take a bio break, we'll come back at 3:11, and we'll yield the floor to Jeff Wetzel for the presentation on the fund expenditure plan. And we'll bring back the question, Maureen, that you asked earlier today. So we'll see you back at 3:11. It is 3:11. We're gonna come back. I'm gonna go to the next slide. As folks are turning on the camera, I'm gonna go ahead and yield the floor to Jeff Wetzel with the Division of Financial Assistance for the next presentation. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Alma. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet the new folks and see the returning faces. Again, I'm Jeff with Division of Financial Assistance, and I'll be giving a little overview from the funding perspective, especially about our annual fund expenditure plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we talk about the SAFER program from the funding perspective, this graph's trying to kind of capture what we all kind of consider and think about. So first of all, our SAFER program is focused on drinking water. And while it was kind of created in 2019 with the specific Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund, which you can kind of see at the center top there, the State Water Board does have other different funding sources that we administer that can handle and address drinking water solutions. And so those kind of go around the horn here. You have some specific drinking water infrastructure general fund from the state. You have some specific general fund to address PFAS contamination. We also have other smaller general fund pots over time, some for specific reasons, others just kind of general. We have drinking water bonds for some of the large municipalities that aren't considered small or disadvantaged. We have our principal forgiveness for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, which is tied to the federal program, and we do a cost share of half state funding, half federal dollars there. And then we also have some funding pots for emerging contaminants as well. So all those different array of funding sources kind of bleed in and make up our SAFER funding program. And the one at the top, like I said, it kicked us all off in 2019 with the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about that and the associated fund expenditure plan that we develop every year. But one of the unique things about that funding source is it's versatile. It can kind of go through all the different types of drinking water solutions that we normally see out there. I'll run through those real quickly. So it can cover interim drinking water supplies. So bottled water or hauled water can be a solution and funded underneath that. It can address emergency repairs. It can do technical assistance. It can also fund administrators, systems where the local control or local leadership has eroded for one reason or another, and they need some type of administrator to come in and kind of get it back on track. It can also do planning and construction projects, which a lot of the other funding sources can do as well. And then lastly, and probably most uniquely, the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund can assist with operation and maintenance for the kind of the day-to-day ops of a water system. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So Maureen, hopefully this slide and this figure, as I talk through it, will kind of answer some of your questions here. So now we're going to focus on our yearly fund expenditure plan. So that's our guiding policy document that gets developed in a collaborative process every year, and then we take it to our board, and our board adopts it. So what feeds into our FEP or fund expenditure plan? So a lot of it we just heard from Dan is the needs assessment results, the work that her team does in outlining what the potential needs are in different forms and fashions and where they're needed. And then another input for the FEP is this group here, the SAFER Advisory Group. So it's assembled of a variety of different folks with different expertise, and we hold quarterly meetings, so 4 of them a year, and kind of sequester feedback and input on, well, the content that's in the annual FEP. We also, a couple years ago, developed some guiding SAFER program goals. And there's 3 of them, 3 main ones out there. I think we'll talk about those hopefully a little bit later. And those you also will hear at every single quarterly advisory group meeting that we hold. And then to some of the more kind of funding dollar signs there. So safer program commitments, like what have we already committed to our funding so far? What's anticipated to be available to us this coming fiscal year? And then trying to kind of look at the demand, like we look at existing applications or other funding needs that we know are on the horizon. Those all go into this annual fund expenditure plan, and kind of what comes out of that then is our safer priorities. We have a set of priorities, which obviously focus on the like failing systems, and at this point, the at-risk systems are included in those priorities. We also touch on some of the domestic well efforts that we do in terms of our priorities for the safer program as well. And then also a big component of the FEP is our fund targets, and the fund targets there are specific to the safe and affordable drinking water funds. Doesn't really capture all the other funding sources, but we get about $130 million each year for the safe and affordable drinking water fund, and then we develop kind of targets on, you know, how much might go to our technical assistance, how much would go to a planning and construction project, and so on. Kind of break it down. We also outline some metrics and reporting there to kind of keep track of how the program's doing, where the money's going, and kind of track the progress over time. And then lastly, kind of fund eligibilities, like what's triggering an eligible project for funding. Next slide, please. So that public process, I just want to talk about too. About this time every year, we start developing our draft FEP for internal review. And then we do have normally our Q1 and Q2 advisory group meeting kind of during this period of time. And then we will release a draft fund expenditure plan, normally in the beginning part of summer, June or July, for a 30-day public comment period. We also normally have our third Safer Advisory Group meeting about that same time, so we can share it with the group and take questions and kind of address those comments. And then after that public comment period, and we get comments and revise the plan accordingly, it goes to our board, normally in late summer, early fall for adoption. And then we are often good for a short period of time. and then we are back at it this time of year. The fund expenditure plan is based, since we're funding, is based off of the fiscal year. So the fiscal year starts July 1, and then we'll close out on June 30th of the following year. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about kind of the roles within the Division of Financial Assistance that kind of really largely support the technical nature of the SAFER program. We have 3 different sections or 3 different buckets. So we have a section completely dedicated to just technical assistance. So technical assistance are work with 3-party providers that help do planning and engineering work, as well as legal services or income surveys. It's basically just providing communities and water systems with the technical assistance that they should need. We also have technical and managerial staff training as well for these water systems. A portion of technical assistance is outreach and engagement at the local levels. And then ultimately kind of that effort is really focused on getting a failing system to a construction project or construction application that can then go on for a project to be built, and then the system can return to compliance. Technical assistance nowadays does a lot of planning. There is still some traditional planning could be done just by own water systems and things of that nature, but we use technical assistance to do a lot of the planning effort now to support these communities. And then the middle bucket here of our other section is kind of more our traditional kind of planning and construction technical support staff. So that's been around a while, but it still supports the SAFER program, uses some of the state revolving funds, federal match funds as well. We've also developed a expedited drinking water grant program. So that's using some grant funds, and then now just recently some of the principal forgiveness funds as well. But that's kind of what you kind of want to call our traditional kind of like bread and butter infrastructure construction projects. And then lastly, on the right here, the safe and affordable drinking water section, that's where I sit. We support kind of a variety of efforts. So some of the domestic well regional programs or county programs are housed within this section. Those are programs, again, kind of with either local counties or nonprofits, and they're programs established in certain parts of the state to assist domestic wells with, whether they're dry or they have contamination. Also within this section, we kind of house our operation and maintenance support. So we have maybe, I think, 22 agreements right now or contracts that assist with operation and maintenance for a variety of reasons. There's some systems that have high treatment costs that we're assisting with. We have some systems with affordability challenges that we're addressing. And then a good amount of the operation and maintenance support that we're doing now is to support our administrators. And so that's the next thing that happens, or next program within this section is the administrators. I mentioned that earlier, but those are for systems where there's really no local leadership or no local governance, where we appoint administrators to come in and do the day-to-day operations of the system, as well as normally improve it and kind of return the system to compliance. And then lastly, within the section, we also handle some of the more emergency projects that have either, bottled water, hold water needs, or maybe a pump goes down or a tank fails or something like that, and you need to kind of address it in a more urgent matter, and the scope of those projects is normally pretty small. Next slide, please. All right. I think that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. And I'll look to see if there's any hands raised. Maureen, I know you had a question in relation to the FEP, so by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really just timeline. So the process that we're in right now with regard to the FEP, that will affect the FEP coming out at what time? The next fiscal year? Because I was noticing, right, so it would be 2027 to 2028. Is that what we're talking about?
Correct. Yeah, so
Okay.
the FEP in development right now is for 2026, 27.
Oh, wait. Oh, wait, sorry. Okay, then I was confused. So then because there's going to be sessions and feedback happening in August, which is at the very start. So I would imagine you'd have to have something out earlier. So our impact is for the next
going forward for next fiscal year. So as we sit today,
yeah.
There's that board adopted fund expenditure plan for 2025-26. And then they will adopt the next one, like I said, somewhere around July or August, all things considered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. And thank you, Maureen. And by all means, I think this is also very complex. And so all questions, any questions that you may have, please do ask. I think it took me a while to kind of understand also just the cycle of like the fiscal year. And so please, be sure to ask any questions that make sense to you, because this is the aspect where you'll be providing recommendations. Wajiha?
Just a curiosity question. You mentioned multiple funding sources. So the SAFER Fund is the main. How much percent would you say is attributed to that?
It's hard to say, right? Because the funding sources kind of shift, or at least the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund doesn't really shift. It's 130 million for the most part every year. But our other funding sources come and go, right? Some are one-time allotments. Other times are federal match funds, so those change. But if I had to guess, just for like a kind of a ballpark, I would think that the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund probably contributes to about, I don't know, 15 to 20%, I think. Let's say 20% of our overall portfolio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wajiha, for that question. Any other questions, curiosities? And if none come to you right now, but they do come in later, please feel free to reach out. And I do see Bruce.
Yeah. So Jeff, I know there are some systems that have been funded. They're going through the testing, and they have to, I forget what the term of art is, but before they come off of the failing system, they have to have go through some grounding. Are those included in, when are those taken out of the FEP, or how do you account for those in the FEP?
Yeah. If I'm understanding your question correct, Bruce, I think within the FEP, you would see those systems and those projects captured in our committed funding, right? So that would be some of the funds that we've already awarded, and we have like a construction agreement in place. So those funds are already committed, and then over that term of that project, they'll get dispersed down. I think that's how you would see those in our FEP. And then our partners at the Division of Drinking Water, that engagement group up there, tracks the failing list very closely. And they kind of keep stats on how those projects move through that timeline and then eventually drop off as they're returned to compliance.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for that question, Bruce. Any other questions? Angela? Islas?
Yes, Salma. Sorry for being late again, everybody. And nice to meet all the new advisory group members. Jeff, I think I just want to wrap my head around a little bit regarding I guess each of the funding resources that you have. I know that there's conversations around there's a max cap for an amount of funding that could be allocated to a particular project. And I know for my case with Perry Colony, we kind of already went through our draft engineering report and we had a little bit of an estimate for how construction and overall project costs would be. And it seems like we kind of went over a little bit on the budget, and it had to be due to the materials that are being considered for the consolidation project. And so I'm trying to understand, I know there's caps that we're trying to consider, but if we're having an issue with, say, materials overall, is there any other funding resources within the FEP that we could look into to help alleviate that extra cost? I don't know if my question's making sense, because I feel like I'm being told there's a cap. So there's a $10 million cap, and that's all they could fund. But yet, if materials is an issue of extra costs, I would assume that we could go to another funding resource under the FEP to maybe see if that could help with that cost.
Good question. And then for folks, it's just general awareness. What she's referring to is it's actually requirements that's housed in our other large funding document, which I don't really want to confuse everyone with, but it's called the Intended Use Plan. And it basically looks at the size of a community based off of their connections, and then associates the project or funding amount to a max cap, right? To try to kind of make it equitable for different sizes of communities to get different solutions. And so in some of the cases, that cost per connection or cost per project does kind of reach this max funding cap. And I think in response to your question, Angela, you can't really just tweak the funding source to kind of circumvent that. That's kind of it's a guiding principle there for the priorities and the targets. But I think what you were also talking about is cost of materials. And so I know in that sense, it's kind of what would be an amendment to the agreement, or maybe a final budget amendment based off of materials costs. And I think the IUP does consider some, I'm pretty sure have some kind of wiggle room language for those situations. You just kind of do have to think about that on a case by case basis.
Got it. Thanks for helping me navigate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angela, for that question. And I see Bruce.
So Jeff, these are state funds. Are there federal dollars that are in the fund expenditure plan, or is that in the state revolving? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund is state money. Actually comes from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is the base source of it. And then, yeah, the federal funds are part of the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. That's, yeah, very much, yeah.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Jeff. Any other questions? Curiosities? Adam.
I may want to chime in just to add some experience to largely in response to Anna's question, which I can think of 3 projects where we're working where there have been in 2 cases DWR Department of Water Resources funds that are working on a separate section of a project or sort of a parallel sister project that have been able to, and we've been able to work sort of in tandem. Those were never designed as solutions to a maximum funding limit, but we're certainly able to do that. There's another project where we've got FEMA funding another part of it. So I think there are other funding mechanisms that could be brought to bear outside of the FEP funds, and the only trickiness is that keeping track of the scope of those and keeping them very clearly distinct becomes tricky. The other thing I'll say is I don't think this circumvents the funds, but we've definitely seen, I think there's an FBA form, final bid adjustment. So if the basically construction bids come in and they're higher, the award can be adjusted. It may not be able to exceed the caps, but there is a mechanism for that. And I don't know, maybe Jeff can correct me if I'm saying anything that's nonsense.
No, that's correct. I mentioned that it's a type of amendment, but we call it the final budget approval amendment, as like construction costs are actually solidified.
It's wrong about what it stood for.
That's okay. It's all just acronyms anyways. So, and to Adam's point too, we've seen projects that use settlement funds as well that they have, and then as well as our assistance in kind of, to build the project. And then also a recent change last year, we used to base that funding cap off of kind of like all the assistance that the State Water Board has given to a community, be it technical assistance or maybe even interim bottled water assistance. But we've done away with that, and we're just looking now at the construction costs.
Thank you, Adam, for chiming in on that, and thank you, Jeff. Any other questions to wrap up the presentation on the FEP? And we'll be hearing or be getting more information also as we get closer to the first quarterly meeting in preparation. So again, if any other questions come to you after this meeting, please feel to reach out. Jeff, thank you so much for that presentation. Appreciate it. And we'll go to the next slide. Real brief, we're gonna we've already talked about the Safer Advisory group and the role, but a few things to just kind of touch upon is who implements SAFER, and that's a collective. So community groups, everyone here, nonprofits, office of within the state water boards, you have the Division of Drinking Water, Division of Financial Assistance, Office of Public Engagement, Equity and Tribal Affairs. But this is just to point out that this work happens as a collective. And hence why I also want to highlight that any questions, doubts, curiosities, please lean on that as we have this time together in making recommendations towards the fund expenditure plan, the needs assessment, but also in ways to advance the human rights to water and the racial equity resolution that the state water boards adopted. We'll go to the next slide. And so real brief too, everyone that applies to the Safer Advisory Group signs sort of an agreement or states that they read the charter. And that's something that I want to emphasize. We have a guiding document that guides how many advisory members will be in the advisory group based on 7 categories. The advisory group members serve a 2-year term, and they can reapply if they like to, as we've seen some of the advisory members reapply. And the other thing is that we do have the board resolution that established the SAFER Advisory Group, so it is mandated. And if you do not have it, we'll be sure to make sure that everyone has a copy of the charter. It was actually also mailed and included in the SAFER Advisory Group manual that you all received. And you can always look at that as, yay, thank you, Bruce, as a resource. Lots of information. It was definitely a lot of information, but something that you can kind of go through and look to if there's any questions. But we always have also, you all have access to all of our staff here as well. And we'll go to the next slide. And real quick, again, this is just to emphasize your role and to provide input and feedback so as for us to also be very intentional of our time on the annual needs assessment, the priorities for the fund expenditure plan, ways in which we can advance the California human right to water, and also advancing the Water Board's commitment to racial equity. What we do not do, we do not approve plans, documents, or make policy decisions. We do not evaluate individual applications for funding, and we do not develop consensus recommendations or majority opinions. So I wanted just to also kind of emphasize those specific frameworks in which the advisory group functions, so we can all come in ready in our quarterly meetings. We'll go to the next slide. And real quick, how does the SAFER Advisory Group recommendations, how are those shared with the State Water Board? And so in our advisory group meetings, staff are taking notes on your recommendations, on your questions, action items. These are discussed with the SAFER executive meeting. And so presentations, and also it's not only in this platform, we also, folks are reaching out separately, individually to our staff. We include those notes, and they are shared then with, if accepted and implemented, they'll be shared with the board, the State Water Board. And we'll go to the next slide. We'll talk really brief about expectations and responsibilities. And I think some of it has already been emphasized. Some of this I'm gonna wait because it's also covered on the legal considerations that Lauren will talk about shortly. And I think just in terms of responsibilities, the importance of attending all meetings. Something that I do want to emphasize here is that if we do have a lack of participation, missing 2 or more meetings without maybe letting us know ahead of time, the seat can be terminated. And so it is important that we also respect everyone's times. Please come prepared to each meeting, to commit to be fully present for the entire duration of the meeting. We are doing our best also to ensure information is being shared with you ahead of time, to be also respectful of your time. Please do ask questions. Share your thoughts and advice. You have a very unique perspective that you're bringing to this advisory group. So please do share your perspective. And any calls or emails, please be responsive. And if there's any questions, please reach out. And we'll go to the next slide. I think real quick also in terms of resources, we have language access services. So all of our quarterly advisory group meetings will be in English with Spanish interpretation available. And so we also are committed to making sure that the documents are translated, materials packet, communications, their advisory group members have access to a bilingual staff. We also ask of the SAFER Advisory Group to give us feedback on the interpretation, on the translation, and that's incredibly important because we want to ensure that also the information that gets to you is accurate. So please do not hesitate in giving feedback to our staff. Next slide. And I'm going to yield the floor to Lauren Marshall of the Office of Chief Counsel to talk about the legal considerations of the Safer Advisory Group.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'll be pretty quick. We've already kind of touched on some of these. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Great. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. Just provide a little bit of legal context for the Safer Advisory Group, discuss some of the specific rules around your meetings under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. I'm going to make a couple notes about how to conduct yourself ethically within our legal framework and just point out a couple specific things in your charter. Next slide, please. Great. So just some context about where this group comes from and which legal rules apply to its procedures. So the State Water Board is required by law to consult you, an advisory group, to meet the purposes of the Fund Expenditure Plan. And that requirement exists in the Health and Safety Code and was established when the board was given the authority to create and operate the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund. The Safer Advisory Group's role is, again, intentionally limited to being only advisory in nature. It is not a decision-making body like the State Water Board itself. It does not have decision-making authority like some of the DFA and DDW staff that you'll work with. You don't get to make decisions around issuing penalties, awarding grants, permitting, etc. Decision-making bodies are subject to a whole host of legal rules that you luckily are not. And then last source of kind of law for the advisory group is its own charter. So Alma sent around a copy of the charter. I would encourage you to take a look at it. It definitely has some useful rules and responsibilities. And I'll talk about that more at the end. Next slide, please. Okay, as an advisory group, you are subject to what we colloquially call Bagley-Keene. It's shorthand for Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, which is found in the state government code. Bagley-Keene is designed to promote government transparency and ensure agency deliberation is conducted in public. Advisory groups are subject to rules under Bagley-Keene, even though you don't have decision-making authority. So one of the big rules under Bagley-Keene is that these meetings have to be publicly noticed. So public notices are posted online, sent around in appropriate formats, but State Water Board staff handles the posting of those notices. So no responsibilities for you all there. A few rules that you do need to be aware of. Meetings of a quorum or a majority of SAG members, which I think we have 19 members, so a majority would be 9 or more, must be open to public attendance. So board staff usually take the lead on making sure that these meetings are public, but what the responsibility you have here is to not create kind of an accidental meeting. So avoid email correspondence between 9 or more members of the group. If you need to email everyone, use BCC, and avoid social gatherings of 9 or more members of the group. You also need to avoid what we call serial meetings. A serial meeting is a meeting resulting from multiple separate private communications among members that together amount to a communication among the majority. So, example, an email amongst 5 of the Safer Advisory Group members is forwarded to another 5 Safer Advisory Group members. That creates a serial communication between 10 members of the Safer Advisory Group, so a majority of the Safer Advisory Group. So that correspondence should have been conducted publicly rather than in private email under Bagley-Keene. So really just avoid large communication amongst yourselves in forums other than these publicly noticed meetings. Bagley-Keene does also have specific teleconference rules. So this is a teleconference meeting right now. Bagley-Keene does allow for those, both fully remote meetings and hybrid meetings. So under those rules, members of an advisory body should appear on camera. If your technology does not allow for it, or if you have connection issues, you should announce that issue and turn off your camera. And if you intend to participate in a hybrid meeting from a remote location, just let board staff know ahead of time. Next slide, please. Oh, yes, question.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. If we happen to be in Nevada or Arizona, can we still participate in the meeting?
Yes. Just let board staff know. Well, so there's a difference between full remote meetings, which I think we consider this one fully remote. You don't need to let staff know ahead of time, but for hybrid meetings where some people will be participating in person, some remotely, you should let staff know in which format you'll be participating.
Thank you.
Ethical conduct. So Safer Advisory Group members are not employees or representatives of the board. You are not authorized to act on behalf of the board or make public statements on behalf of the board, which also means you are not subject to the traditional conflict of interest rules that apply to state employees, state representatives, state water board members. But I will flag that a lot of you are representatives of different organizations, nonprofits, water systems, etc. Do note that your organization might have a conflict of interest policy, and your participation in the Safer Advisory Group could implicate some of those terms. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that policy. Let's see. I'll also flag that your organization might be a funding recipient from State Water Board. And there could be terms and conditions in that funding agreement that could be implicated by your participation. So I would also encourage you to take a look at that. Next slide, please. Alma already talked about the charter. I just wanted to flag that it is a good source of rules for conduct and participation. So if you have questions about how to appropriately participate, I would use that as a first resource. And then one important flag is you cannot continue your membership if you cease to qualify for the category in which you were appointed. So if you were appointed as a representative of a technical assistance provider and you either retire, take a new job outside of the technical assistance space, etc., we may have to reevaluate your membership, and you should reach out to board staff ASAP to get that figured out. And that's all I have, but happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lauren. And I see Bruce.
There is no compensation for this, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless your organization provides compensation.
Right. And then expenses are on our own. So travel, if that's, because Safer didn't you have a quarterly meeting on the Central Coast recently?
Alma, we do reimburse travel if you're not already being reimbursed for travel through by your employer. Is that right, Alma?
Yeah, the understanding if there's no funding agreement with the organization or their employer, then they can be reimbursed for travel.
Thank you.
And I would just say also be very patient with travel reimbursements. They do take quite a bit of time, but those are possible. We're still working on reimbursements from our December meeting. Good question. Wajika, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about the background noise. Just curious so we have quarterly meetings planned. All of them are hybrid, or will there be only exclusive in-person meeting that we should be aware of so we can plan ahead? And I know that some of the materials you guys provided us with the handbook that was really informative. Do you typically provide these presentation slides or draft document like 1 week or 2 weeks prior for us to review, or what's the process like? Thank you.
Good question. Yes, so in terms of the meetings, they have been previously virtual. Last year, we had an in-person meeting and tour in the Central Coast, and I'm looking to see if we can continue to have that this year, but also see if there could be at least 2 meetings in person. So maybe the second quarterly in headquarters, and then the last advisory group as well. So I'm following up on that, and I'll get back to folks so we can also have a schedule, like a tentative schedule for folks to plan ahead. We do have the first quarterly meeting coming up in March. We're looking for the second one to be around June. And also just checking in with folks in the Division of Financial Assistance to make sure that the timeline, the meeting of the advisory group meetings aligns also with the FEP process. And then you had another question about materials. Yes, the idea is to ensure that we have material packet available to you all at least 2 weeks ahead of the meeting for you all to review it and come prepared to the meeting. Same thing with the PowerPoints. And after the meetings, we will upload the materials, meeting notes, the recording to our Safer calendar. So you can always also access either previous meetings, or if there's a part that you want to go back to in terms of a discussion, you can go back to those as well. Thank you for that question. And Timoteo Prado, I see your hand.
Oh, sorry. I had a question regarding the handbook. I know it said that it includes our charter and there's a digital version online on the website. Is there a physical one? And if they were mailed out, I didn't receive mine.
Oh, I'll double check. You should, yeah, we should have a physical copy of the charter, and I'll circle back with you, Timoteo, to make sure that gets to you. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you so much, Lauren, for breaking down also the Bagley Keene and also the Safer Advisory Group members' expectations and responsibilities.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
And before we go to the next, I do see Adam Rausch.
Hi, I had just a quick question last minute that I have my 2025 Safer Advisory Group member handbook here. Has there been substantive changes or anything we should be aware of in terms of the evolution of that?
Good question. Yes, there will be, and there may be a few updates or documents that are updated. I think what was just emailed thus far was like a Bagley Keene guide that Lauren shared with us in terms of also just how to go about meeting with advisory group members. There's also some updates to the frequently asked questions for the Safer Drinking Water Program and the Safer Advisory Group. I think those were emailed, but I will circle back to ensure that folks want a hard copy. We can always get that to you as well. Awesome. Thank you. But thank you for that. We want to make sure that everyone, any updates that happen to the handbook goes out to everybody. Any other questions? I'm going to do a quick time check. I know it's 3:54. We had scheduled a brief collaboration session, and the idea behind this is to do one-on-ones. I think having the opportunity to meet one-on-one, you get a lot more inside knowledge from one another. Given the time frame that we have, we will hold on to this, but what I will plan to seed is for folks to reach out to one another as long as you meet or follow the Bagley Keene Act. So one-on-ones are totally fine. And again, I think just be mindful that we cannot have meet quorum without a public notice. But if folks want to reach out to each other, do like a small virtual coffee and learn about each other's background, I think that gives a lot of wealth of information also and resources to one another. You do have access to everyone's contact. And so again, the contact information shared with you all is only for you all. Your roster will be publicly posted, but it only gives the category and the region where you are representing. And so with that, I'm going to plant that seed for y'all to reach out to one another. We're going to go to the next section, which is public comment. And so in every quarterly meeting, we do have a public comment section. And I'm just going to circle back with our team to see if there's any public comments on our Safer inbox, something that folks might have emailed. We do not have any public comments in person. And I'm also looking just at our attendees list in case there's any hands raised. I see none. And it doesn't look like we have any questions in the Safer inbox. Awesome. So we'll go to the next slide. So for closing remarks and next steps, so we are at 3:56. Something that I do want to let you all know, in the structure of our quarterly meetings, there is a section for Safer Advisory Group member announcements. So if you have anything you'd like to share on a project, things coming up, things that you would want to make other Safer Advisory Group members aware of, that would be a good moment to share. So I want to maybe give like a minute or two if there's any announcement that folks would want to share here with the rest of the Safer Advisory Group. You can also just raise your hand or unmute yourself. Adam, I see you.
Yeah, I'll give a brief description of a project in Pescadero in 2017. The State Water Board issued a notice that in the absence of safe drinking water sources, students at the school must be supplied with bottled water. Their water had become undrinkable. I want to announce that as of about 2 weeks ago, that project has gone all the way through the Safer TA process. I was funded through Prop 1, construction funded through Safer, and they've just completed that. So Pescadero Middle High School now has safe drinking water through San Mateo County Service Area 11. It was a consolidation project.
No, the virtual reactions. Thank you so much for sharing that update. It's always great to hear when a successful project goes through. It's just also a reminder also like just the continuous work. So really appreciate highlighting that project, Adam. Thank you. Any other announcements from other advisory group members that you'd like to share? See none. Then what I can share with y'all is you do have a calendar invite. We'll be getting reminders for the first quarterly meeting, which will be March 12th. So Thursday, March 12th from 9 to 2 p.m. And I'll be working on getting additional information on the rest of the quarterly meetings for y'all to plan ahead. And with that said, just big thank you. And I'm going to go back. I do see Maureen. I see your hand.
Yeah, actually, Alma, I emailed you about this, but I figured others might be confused as well. So I think the email we got, can't remember what day, February, I think 8 days ago, is a Teams link. But then when you register on Zoom, it's a Zoom link. So there are two links for the same day, FYI.
Thank you.
And two different calendar invites, actually. It comes through as two different invites, totally.
I appreciate that, Maureen.
Yeah.
I'll look into that. I think when we sent probably the calendar invite, there was a Teams immediately created. Typically it's deleted. And so I'll double check and make sure that y'all just have the one calendar invite. When you do register, however, everyone does get a unique Zoom link. And that's also just for purposes of making sure we take care of security in our Zoom meetings. So it'll be through Zoom, but I'll double check and make sure that that's corrected. Thank you for highlighting it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we're always on Zoom. That's great to know.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody. With that said, thank you again for your time. It is 4 p.m. on spot. We did good. If you have any questions later on, please feel free to reach out. And I'm very happy to see you all and looking forward to work with everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.